a giant hump, and nothing is going to save you. So you've got to go back to basics and understand, Franklin Roosevelt in 32 and again in 34 effectively defaulted. What he did is he said, I've got to restructure the debt. Well, at the time, we had huge quantities of gold pouring into us from Europeans who owed us from World War I. That helped a great deal. Secondly, he had a big scientific industrial base that simply needed to be restarted. We need to get people back into it to work. But he also cut spending in a number of important ways, not the least of which was in defense. And he understood that you had to do that to get your creditors to support you. Why would anybody turn to us and say, all right, why would Saudi Arabia, Japan, China, any number of our creditors say, well, these Americans aren't so bad. They're really serious. They want to deal with the debt. There's no evidence for it.
What is your take on the implications of the U.S. going from the world's largest creditor nation to the world's largest debtor nation, and the fact that we've been able to sort of exploit our advantage by being the global reserve currency, and we're seeing nations start to de-dollarize faster and faster?
Well, the nations, the BRICS, I think there's a total of 84 right now interested in working with Russia, China, and India to effectively get out from underneath our financial system. Remember, the problem with our financial system is not the dollar per se, it's our desire to bully everyone. We have 34 nations, last time I looked, under some form of financial sanction. This is crazy. How can you expect to do business when you're telling people, no, we're punishing you for these political reasons, we don't like your human rights record, we don't like this or that. More important, perhaps you're not growing the right crop, or the crop we want you to grow. All of this is outrageous nonsense. People have had it. It's over. They put up with this for the first 50 years after the Second World War for obvious reasons. They did not want to be dominated by communism. They saw the danger that it represented themselves. So this is over. That no longer justifies this unquestioning obedience. Only the Europeans are following us slavishly, and I think that's because the globalist elite doesn't know what else to do. And remember, what no one in Washington wants to admit. I was wrong. No one will step forward to document the mistake. So it's all going to collapse that way. It's going to fall apart. It will disintegrate. Somebody asked me yesterday, how far do you think we're going to get? Are we going to change things with the next election? I don't know if we'll make it that far. It's hard for me to believe that this man Biden is going to make it through the rest of the year. And he's obviously a cardboard cutout. Other people are handing him the script to read. But he's at the end of his tether. So what do you do, put Kamala Harris in? Well, good luck with that proposition. I don't know of anybody who believes that woman knows what she's doing. So then suddenly you have a power vacuum. I think it's going to take something like this before finally someone says, well, what do you do right away that's going to improve our position financially? You cut defense spending because you're dismantling the empire. You've got to dismantle the empire. That's what the Romans did when they fell apart. As you moved from Diocletian to the end, bring the troops back. Bring them back from England. Bring them back from Gaul. Bring them back from North Africa until finally they were home and everything changed. So I think something like that is going to happen here.
Colonel, something that's always amazed me is how far we're able to kick the can down the road. The U.S. dollar is still used in about 80% of global transactions. We're so deeply entrenched in this financial system that we helped prop up, and now it's basically built on a foundation of debt. So you mentioned that you think it's going to crumble pretty soon, but how do you actually see it playing out? Because I think a lot of people would argue that it's probably going to be the U.S. dollar dominating for a bit longer as other currencies start to rise, including, many of us believe, Bitcoin.
Well, remember that the BRICS and these other 84 countries have been going effectively moving towards the gold-backed currencies. I don't know what this is. It takes time to build the institutions like ours. Now, we can argue that the SWIFT system is anachronistic, needs to be overhauled and changed. I agree. But you don't build something like that overnight. And confidence in these countries and the ability to do business with them legitimately, that also has to grow. So the dollar is going to persist a bit longer, but as the dollar ceases to be the one and best alternative, that's when Bitcoin steps in. Because again, what's the problem with the dollar right now? The banks. People don't want to be under the thumb of the banks because the banks are controlled by the same globalist elite that runs the media, that gives you the news that isn't news, that creates false narratives, that dominates your government, etc. These are the same people that shipped all of our jobs overseas and deindustrialized America. These are the people that Donald Trump was opposed to and fights against. These are the people that RFK Jr. talks about. That's why Bitcoin is inevitable in my judgment. When, how, and how much, that's beyond my level of expertise, but I see that it is inevitable. What else can you do? Do you want to use whatever comes out of the BRICS, China, Russia, and India? Probably not immediately.
Well, right, exactly. I mean, you mentioned even if it's a basket of currencies backed by gold, how do you audit the gold? All the gold has been centralized in the vaults of central banks. None of these nations trust one another. And with Bitcoin, it's this immutable trust network and something that anyone can verify from anywhere. So I think that it'll be interesting to see this play out. But I'm kind of curious, you have so much experience deep within the military. Sometimes on this show, we talk about the military-industrial complex and how that has eroded some of the economic value that the U.S. offers. Can you talk to me a little bit about the America that you grew up in? Can you describe it versus the America that you see today that kids are growing up in?
I grew up in a fairly populous neighborhood, lower middle class neighborhood, frankly, most of working class people in Philadelphia. Most of our neighbors at the time were Ukrainian, Poles, Lithuanians. If you did something wrong when I was 10 years old or something, the phone would ring off the hook and people would call my mother. This was in America that you can see in some of the films of the era. But that's vanished. It's so tragic because you didn't have to worry about being assaulted in the middle of the night. Even in the 1950s, early 60s, you could walk from one end of Philadelphia to the other with about an 80 to 90% chance of doing so without being mugged or killed. Well, that's impossible. The neighborhood I grew up in is a war zone. It's a tragedy. I go back there and bring tears to them because even though these were modest places, people loved their homes, they took care of things, the place was clean, everything was well policed. It's all gone. How do you get it back? And I think that brings us to some hard questions. You're not going to get there by throwing money at the people that are harming your country, by throwing money at people on the grounds that they're oppressed minorities in this kind of business. You've got to step back and say, first of all, are you an American? You are or you're not. There's no halfway house. What do Americans stand for? They believe in the rule of law. First and foremost, they believe in meritocracy. We always know that nothing is perfect. Always strive for the goal. That's one of the fundamentals of Americans. We also believe in defending our country, but we're not very excited about traveling.
We do what we do.
Okay, let's do it. Get up right about now in the place to be. Yeah, the Vj-Family. On fire. Up in here. Up in here. Up in here. Right about now in the place to be. Yeah, the Vj-Family. On fire. Up in here. Up in here. Up in here. Yo, throw your hands in the air.
The word crazy is a good adjective to attach. You know, very few of us in the West understand Russia or Russians. And as a result, we reach all sorts of erroneous conclusions about what it is. This is one of those events that trade has been used for. Prigozhin is an individual, as you know, that is very flamboyant, very outspoken.